So we're going to see the next part of the neuroanatomy, the alpha motor nerves. Okay, there are different types of nerves, and these are the nerves which conduct the impulses. Okay, so one of the major functions of the nerve is to conduct impulses either from the periphery to the brain or from the brain to the periphery. And so we studied there are motor nerves, there are sensory nerves and mixed nerves. So in the motor nerves there are alpha motor nerves. Okay, these are the large fibers, they are larger nerves, and so they conduct impulses faster. And these nerves, these alpha nerves, innervate the regular muscle fibers. Okay, the next type of motor nerves is the gamma motor nerves. These are smaller fibers and they conduct impulses slowly than the alpha motors, and these innervate the proprioceptors such as muscle spindles. Okay, we are going to see about this proprioceptors at the end of this slide presentation. So the functions of properties related to the function is irritability, that is they are able to respond to stimuli. The nerves can respond to stimuli. Whenever there is any type of stimuli, the nerves will respond and they will conduct, that is they will transmit the electrical potential across the or along the axon. So conduction is very important, because if it doesn't conduct the impulses, then whenever somebody pinches you, then it won't go to the brain, it will just you won't even be able to feel it. So what happens is, when you don't feel it, then you will get injury, like leprosy patients and diabetic patients, they get wounds on their legs and hands, and this is because there is no conduction. The sensory sensation is lost in that particular area because of nerve damage. So that is why the function of irritability and conductivity is very important. Irritability is nothing but the ability to respond to stimuli. Conductivity is the ability to transmit the electrical potential along the axon. So we have to see what this action potential is. Before the action potential, we need to know what is resting membrane potential. Resting membrane potential is nothing but the electrical potential difference in the plasma or the cell membrane when the cell is in a normal state. When the nerve cell is in a normal state, it has not had any stimuli, it is not doing any conduction. In a normal cell, when it is resting, the potential across the cell membrane is called as the resting membrane potential. Okay, so what is present inside the cell, what is present outside the cell when the cell is resting? When the cell is resting, the sodium is in greater concentration outside, potassium is in greater concentration inside the cell. Okay, so anions are having a greater concentration inside the cell, and the cell is permeable for potassium more than the sodium. So the potassium can go inside the cell membrane, but sodium is prevented from entering the cell membrane. So for this, the sodium pump and the potassium pump helps the sodium to move out and potassium to move inside the cell. So this is the situation in a resting membrane potential. Let us see what happens when the action potential, or when there is polarization and depolarization. Okay, the resting membrane potential is defined as the electrical potential difference across the plasma membrane when the cell is in a non-excited state. This is the definition which we already studied, and how the situation is inside the cell and outside the cell we already saw. So when the action potential is generated, okay, there is movement of sodium and potassium pump. So when the action potential, when there is a conduction, the ion channels open, that is the sodium channels open. So this allows the sodium to rush inside. This is the first step. Once the sodium rushes in, the sodium channels will close, and this again prevents the flow of sodium inside. We already saw that potassium, the cell membrane is permeable to potassium but not to sodium. So the sodium cannot come inside once the sodium channels close. After this, the potassium channels open and the potassium rushes out from inside. Okay, So this is the three changes that happen. Sodium channel open, sodium rushes in from outside the cell, then the sodium channels close, and so the whatever sodium is present inside it stays there, or what is outside stays there. Then the potassium channels open and potassium rushes out. So what happens is depolarization occurs and then repolarization. This allows the electrical flow created by the ionic flow. Okay, so let us see here. Here the repolarization, depolarization occurs. The depolarization, sodium channel opens here, okay, and then sodium channels close here, okay, and then this is how the sodium channel is completely closed. So this forms the depolarization and the repolarization. So this causes the, so this is the changes in the sodium channel during a action potential. Okay, so this is how the action potential is generated. So depolarization occurs, then repolarization occurs, and this helps in nerve conduction. So the sodium potassium pump is very important, because from the resting membrane potential, when these pumps open and close, there is change in the action potential, because the sodium rushes in from outside and then the sodium pump closes, then the potassium pump opens and the potassium rushes from inside the cell membrane to outside, and this helps in maintaining the concentration, and then the action potential occurs. So this is how the conduction of the nervous system happens, from resting membrane potential when there is no excitation or stimulus present, to a situation when action potential is present, where the conduction by the nerve happens. Okay, so this is the conduction system of the nervous system. Next important thing is the neuromuscular junction. I already told you in one picture in the first class that nerve and the muscle meet at a particular place, and that is the neuromuscular junction. So which part of the nerve meets the muscle? The dendrite. Okay, dendrite of the neuron meets the muscle. Okay, sorry, the axon, the ends of the axon, or the terminal parts of the axon, they meet the muscle. Okay, so the motor neuron cell body and dendrites in the gray matter of spinal cord is present. The axons of these neurons extend to the muscle. Okay, so the axon, is the long part of the nerve, and it ends in a terminal bulb. Okay, here in the picture you can see that that is a terminal branches. So here is the axon hillock is here, the axon comes here, and there are terminal branches where there is a bulb-like structure in the end of the axon. So what happens is, this axon extends to the muscle. The terminal bulb, which contains a synaptic knob, which has synaptic vesicles called acetylcholine. So this forms a very important, this is a very important chemical which is needed for the neuromuscular junction to function in a proper way. So the axons and the end of the axons. So finally the synaptic knob, which has synaptic vesicles containing acetylcholine, it connects to the muscle to form the neuromuscular junction. So once again with the picture we'll see the axon leaves the spinal cord and then extends to the skeletal muscle here, and the terminal branches end in the synaptic knob. So here the terminal branches, they end in the synaptic knob, which forms the neuromuscular junction. So the motor end plate, you can see here the motor end plates are there. Okay, so what are the motor end plates? Is the area beneath the terminal branches of the axons. It contains acetylcholine receptor complex. Okay, so here the area beneath the terminal branches, the motor end plate, and it contains acetylcholine. What does the acetylcholine do? The acetylcholine binds open the receptor complex. Acetylcholine binding opens the receptor complex, and the cholinesterase. Okay, there is cholinesterase which degrades this acetylcholine into acetate and choline. So this is the process that happens at the motor end plate area. Okay, so here you can see this is the terminal, this is the action potential, this is the axon which ends in the terminal branches. Okay, and this is the neuromuscular junction. The nerve ends here and the muscle starts here. So in this part, the synaptic vesicles contain acetylcholine. Here is the acetylcholine. So acetylcholine, when it is released, it is broken into choline and acetate. Choline and acetate. So this is what happens in the neuromuscular junction. So that is how the nerve impulse carried from the nerve goes into the muscle, and this is called the presynaptic membrane. This end part of the axon is the presynaptic membrane, and this part which is present is called the postsynaptic membrane, and the center part, which is gray in color or probably that orangish shade, that is the synaptic cleft. The area between the presynaptic membrane and the postsynaptic membrane is the synaptic cleft, and this junction which forms between the nerve and the muscle is the neuromuscular junction. So in this way of conduction from the nerve to the muscle, there are different ways in which the muscle gets excited. Okay, so when the neuron reaches threshold, it generates an action potential which is conducted through the length of the axon without any change. When the nerve fires, all the muscle fiber it innervates contract. That means when a nerve starts conducting, all the muscle fibers that it innervates will contract. Okay, that is why when a nerve is normal, when the nerve functions, the muscle fibers together will contract. If not, all the muscles will not contract. It's not like partially some muscle fibers will contract, others will not contract. Okay, so either they all contract together or there will be no contraction at all. That is why this law is called as all or none law. So when the nerve threshold reaches a particular level, the muscles or the muscle fibers which are connected to that nerve will all contract together. If the threshold does not reach the particular level and the stimuli is not passed on to the muscle will not contract. Even a single fiber will not contract. That is why this law is called all or none law. Either all the muscle fibers will contract together beyond a threshold, or none of the muscle fibers will contract below the threshold. Okay, so hope you understood this concept, because that is why the muscle becomes tensed, or there is a muscle tone when the muscle contracts. Okay, so when the nerve doesn't work, there is no tone in the muscle and the muscle does not contract at all. So here there are different types of potentials. Temporal summation, which is an additive effect of successive stimuli from an axon. That is, the axon keeps sending stimuli to the muscle. So temporal summation is the addition of all these stimuli which occur one after the other. Spatial summation means the stimuli from different axons. Temporal summation from one particular axon. Spatial summation, there is different axons providing different stimuli. Everything together is called the spatial summation. So based on the force of muscle varies from slight to maximal. That is, if the contraction is less, then there is mild muscle movement. The contraction is more, then there is more muscle movement. So it varies from either slight to the maximum amount of contraction. Okay, increased number of motor units may be recruited, that will increase the force. increased frequency of motor unit discharge will also increase the force. So these are the two things that increase the force of the muscle contraction. So here in this graph you can see there are simple twitches, that is the muscle just contracts. If you just touch your muscles, you can see that there are contraction. Then the contraction keeps increasing and it becomes a tetanus or a continuous contraction. So continuous contraction means it is in a state of continuous contraction and then it becomes relaxed. So this is the muscle, how it contracts. There is twitch, that is there is a excitation, then loss of excitation, excitation, loss of excitation. Muscle contracts, then decreases, contracts, decreases, contracts, decreases, but the decrease reduces in the amount of decrease. Then it twitches and then finally there is a complete contraction. It is in a state of full contraction and then it relaxes completely. So this is the force of muscle contraction. And there are I remember telling you proprioceptors. There are 4 types of proprioceptors. One is the muscle spindles, next is the Golgi tendon organs, Pacini corpuscles, and Ruffini endings. Okay, so muscle spindle is one type of proprioceptor. So there the muscle spindles are present within the muscle belly. This is the muscle belly and you can see that the muscle spindles are present here. So what does this muscle spindle do? It has 2 functions. It checks the change in the muscle length. So when does the muscle length change? When there is a contraction, the muscle length will change. So the muscle length starts decreasing or increasing and there is a change in the muscle length, the rate at which the muscle length changes, and the muscle spindle causes the contraction based on the length of the muscle. Then the Golgi tendon organ, it is present, it is also encapsulated receptor. So it is present in the musculo-tendinous junction where the muscle and the muscle tendon join, that area it is present, the Golgi tendon. So what does it do? It monitors the tension within the tendon and causes the muscle to relax. So all these are receptors. Okay, so the receptors means they are nerve endings which they do all the function which they are supposed to in the neuromuscular junction. And Pacini corpuscles and Ruffini endings, they are located near the joints in muscle, tendon and bone. And so these are the 4 proprioceptors. So what are these proprioceptors and what is the role? Proprioceptor is nothing but they are sensory receptors that tell which position each part of the body is present. Okay, so the proprioceptors in the muscles are the muscle spindles and they tell in what position the muscle is present. Is it in a contracted state or in a relaxed state? Same way the Golgi tendon organs are present in the musculotendinous junction and they tell whether the muscle is relaxed, in a relaxed state or in a tensed state, whether it is in a contracted state. So like that each of these proprioceptors, they tell what position each of the body part is in, especially the muscles after the neuromuscular junction. So the neuromuscular junction gets impulses from the nerve and they are passed on to the muscle, and so the muscle will be in a state of contraction. If the muscle contracts, then the joint will move. So these proprioceptors help us to know whether the joint is in flexed position or extended position, whether the muscle is in contraction or is in a relaxed position. So this is also important because in applied aspect, that is when proprioception is lost, the person will not know whether the joint is in a flexed position or extended position. For example, even if your eyes are closed, when somebody moves your finger into flexion, you will know that your finger is bent. But in a person who has lost this proprioception, they will not know whether the finger is in a bent position or it is in an extended position. So these receptors are important because if they are not there, then the proprioception will be lost and the person will not be able to identify whether the joint is in flexed position or extended position, and it is an abnormal state of condition, it is a diseased condition. Okay, so this is about the basics of the nervous system, about proprioception, action potential, resting membrane potential, and how the impulse passes from the axon to the muscle through the neuromuscular junction, and how this impulse gets transferred and how the muscle contracts. So how the stimuli from the nerve reaches the muscle, causing the muscle to contract. All this is through the nervous system. So if the nerve is damaged, the muscle will fail. See, based on this basic anatomy, we will be studying about various diseases. For example, there are some diseases of the neuromuscular junction. So we were talking about the acetylcholine and how the acetylcholine and how this synaptic vesicles it crosses and conducts the impulse. So when this does not happen, there are some diseases where the muscle will not function because of this problem, neuromuscular junction problem. There are some diseases where the myelin sheath is not present. Due to demyelination, there are some diseases. So based on the nerve, different parts of the nerve and the damage that occurs in the different aspects of the nerve, we will be studying some diseases which is part of your neurological conditions, which are also part of your syllabus. Okay, so understanding this conduction system, how the impulse starts from the brain, it goes through the axon, goes through the dendrites goes through the terminal branches of the axon and into the muscle. All that is important, because any place if there is any abnormality in the function or in the anatomy, then you will have diseased conditions, which is what neurology is all about. Okay, so we'll be studying the abnormalities and the diseases caused by these abnormalities in the coming few classes.